Our family Christmas party. Everyone ignored me. When I noticed I had no food, I asked, Mom, what about mine? My mom and sister just giggled. During the gift exchange, they handed me a box. IT was completely empty. I left the room in tears, but the ones who regretted IT later were them. In December, Boston, Massachusetts becomes enveloped in the Christmas spirit. In the upscale neighborhood of Beacon Hill, old stone houses were illuminated, and holiday wreaths adorned the streets. Among them, the three-story Monroe mansion particularly caught the eye. Catherine Monroe took a deep breath as she stood in front of her family home. There was always tension whenever she set foot in this house. As she got out of her car, the freezing winter air stung her cheeks. Kate clutched the small paper bag she was holding. It's okay, this is a special day, Kate encouraged herself. When the front door opened, her mother Vivian Monroe's perfume greeted her. Vivian was always perfectly dressed, maintaining a refined demeanor befitting a former high school English teacher. Kate, you've finally arrived. Everyone's waiting. Vivian's voice carried a hint of reproach. That was her usual tone when speaking to Kate. Hello, Mom? Kate smiled and kissed her mother. Sorry I'm late. There was an urgent proofreading at the publishing house. It's always the same. Work, work, work. Vivian sighed. I wish you could make more time for family. Stepping into the living room, Kate found that the entire family had already gathered. In front of the large Christmas tree, her sister Rebecca was taking selfies with her husband, Daniel Pierce. Becky had gained popularity as an Instagrammer, and her glamorous lifestyle was a source of pride for Mother Vivian. Kate! Becky waved cheerfully. However, her gaze quickly returned to her smartphone screen. Family Christmas Eve photo. #FamilyLove. Daniel was successful as a marketing director for an IT company. He gave Kate a slight nod, but was busy matching his wife's selfie poses. In one corner of the room, her mother's sister, Eleanor Weston, was quietly reading a book. A former university professor, she was now pursuing a second career as a novelist. Eleanor noticed Kate and gave her a warm smile. The two shared a special bond, a common love for the world of books. Kate, welcome. Eleanor stood up and embraced Kate. That novel you recently edited was wonderful. You have a real eye for finding talent in young writers. Kate felt warmed by her aunt's words. She was the only one in the family who understood and appreciated her work. Thank you, Aunt Eleanor. Finding writing talent is my job, but sometimes I lose sight of my own value, Kate replied softly. Oh, nonsense. Eleanor gently squeezed Kate's hand. Your talent is something special. Just then, Margaret Clark appeared from the kitchen. Maggie was Vivian's sister and a successful female entrepreneur. Wearing an apron and holding a wine glass, she entered the living room from the kitchen. Kate, you're finally here. Maggie greeted her brightly. I've been waiting for you. Would you like to help me in the kitchen? Maggie's words sounded like more than just an invitation. They were also an excuse to rescue her from Vivian and Becky's scrutiny. In the kitchen, Maggie's daughter and Eleanor's niece, Olivia, was putting the finishing touches on dinner rolls. Olivia kept busy days as a pediatrician but always made time for family gatherings. Hey Kate, so you finally come to the battlefield, Olivia winked. I heard this Christmas is special. Do you have good news? Kate blushed slightly. She had big news to share with her family. A book she had edited had made the New York Times bestseller list, and her name was becoming known in the publishing industry. However, from past experience, she was anxious about how her family would receive the news. Yes, just a little something, Kate answered vaguely, but I plan to announce it in front of everyone tonight. Maggie and Olivia exchanged meaningful glances. They knew Kate's hesitant nature well, and they also knew how Vivian and Becky had always looked down on Kate's successes. Whatever your news is, we'll support you, Maggie said warmly. Returning to the living room, Vivian was holding a wine glass and talking about the Monroe family history. Since her father had passed away 10 years ago, she had been zealous about preserving family traditions as the head of the household. You probably don't know this, but the Monroe family has contributed to education and the arts for generations, she said proudly. My father, and his father before him, were people who had a tremendous impact on local culture. As Kate listened to her mother's story, she thought about her own achievements in the publishing world. She had discovered the talents of many new writers and had helped bring their works to the world. However, in Vivian's eyes, that didn't seem to qualify as a real success. All right, everyone, Vivian suddenly announced. Let's move to the dining room. Our special Christmas dinner is ready. The dining room was decorated with traditional Monroe family holiday decorations. A bright red poinsettia centerpiece sat on the table, and candle flames flickered in silver candlesticks. Christmas wreaths and holly were arranged elegantly on the walls adorned with family photographs. Vivian took the head seat at the table and raised her wine glass. Now everyone, let's begin our traditional Christmas dinner. Kate approached the table and looked for her seat, but immediately noticed something was wrong. There were 7 place settings on the table, but hers was nowhere to be found. Vivian, Becky, Daniel, Eleanor, Maggie, Olivia, there should have been one more seat. Mom, where's my seat? Kate asked quietly. A moment of silence fell over the room. Vivian and Becky exchanged glances and chuckled softly. There was meanness in their laughter. Oh, I completely forgot about you, Vivian said lightly. Her eyes were cold. Why don't you find something in the kitchen? Or you could eat standing up. Becky let out a small laugh. Sorry, Kate, we didn't think you'd actually come. You always say you're busy with work. Eleanor frowned. Vivian, this is going too far. It's just a joke, Eleanor. Vivian waved her hand dismissively. Kate always takes our jokes too seriously. Don't you, Kate? Kate felt her chest tighten. This wasn't a stroke. It was a pattern of neglect and dismissal that had gone on for years. She had experienced the pain of not being treated as a family member many times. Yes, Mom, Kate answered quietly. She was desperate not to show her tears. Maggie stood up. I'll get another chair. Olivia, could you bring another set of dishes from the kitchen? While the dining table arrangement was being adjusted, Kate stood in the corner of the room. Eleanor approached her and said in a low voice, Are you okay? This family can be truly cruel sometimes. I'm used to it. Kate forced a smile. It's been like this since I was a child. When her seat was finally ready, Kate sat at the edge of the table. While everyone else was serving themselves turkey and ham, all that was placed in front of her was a small serving of salad and a cold dinner roll. Is that enough food for you? Vivian asked, looking at Kate. I remembered you saying you were on a diet, so I kept it light. Kate didn't remember ever saying such a thing. It's plenty, thank you, she answered quietly. During dinner, the conversation was dominated by stories of Becky's Instagram success and Daniel's promotion. Vivian heaped praise on her daughter's achievements. Becky's follower count surpassed 100,000 last week, Vivian said proudly. Her fashion sense is truly remarkable. And her status as a power couple with Daniel has become everyone's envy. Becky nodded happily. Next, our holiday special will be featured in a style magazine. Kate tried to mention her New York Times bestseller news, but no one would look at her. Oh yes, everyone, Vivian suddenly declared. It's time to exchange presents. After dinner, everyone gathered around the Christmas tree in the living room. Elaborately wrapped presents were exchanged amid exclamations of delight. Kate also gave her carefully selected gifts to the family. For her mother, a complete Jane Austen first edition set found at an antiquarian bookstore for Becky, a designer scarf for Daniel, a high-end leather planner for Eleanor, a rare collection of poetry she had been seeking for Maggie, a set of her favorite wines for Olivia, the latest medical encyclopedia that would be useful in her pediatric practice. Each gift was chosen to match the recipient's preferences and needs. Kate, here's your present. Vivian handed a simple box to Kate. Feeling a mix of anticipation and slight anxiety, she opened the box. It was empty. Becky laughed delightedly, and her mother wore a small smile. Oh, it's not empty, Vivian said sarcastically. It contains expectation. I hope you have a nice life someday. The room fell silent. Eleanor couldn't hide her shock. Maggie's face reddened with anger. Olivia's eyes widened. Daniel uncomfortably averted his gaze. Kate stared at the empty box in her hands. The pain spreading in her chest was stronger than any family neglect she had experienced before. Thank you, I understand. Kate quietly stood up. Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice was steady. It's getting late, I should go. It's still early, we haven't even had dessert, Becky said. But there was no sincerity in her words. I've had enough, Kate answered coolly and picked up her coat. No one tried to stop her. Vivian feigned indifference, and Becky started checking her phone. However, Kate didn't miss the meaningful glances exchanged between Aunt Eleanor and Aunt Maggie. Olivia also gave her a sympathetic look. Merry Christmas, Kate said softly as she left the house. 3 months passed. Kate was focused on a new manuscript at her publishing office. The stylish glass-walled office, symbolizing her success, was located on the upper floor of a high-rise with a panoramic view of the city. As she was sipping coffee and making final edits to the manuscript, her assistant Jessica knocked on the office door. There's a call from Eleanor Weston. Taking the call, she heard Eleanor's composed voice. Kate, I need to talk to you. Would you come to my house for tea tomorrow? Maggie will be there too. There was an urgency in Eleanor's voice that made Kate anxious. Since Christmas, she hadn't been in contact with her family. There had been no apologies from Vivian or Becky, and Kate hadn't tried to reach out to them either. Of course, I'll come. Is something wrong? Kate asked. It's difficult to explain over the phone. Could you come to my house at 2 tomorrow afternoon? The next day, Kate visited Eleanor's old-fashioned mansion in Beacon Hill. Even after retirement, Eleanor maintained the dignity of her university professor days, and her home was filled with a scent of intellect and culture. Opening the door, Eleanor warmly welcomed her. Thank you for coming, Kate. Eleanor embraced her. Maggie is already waiting in the sitting room. In the elegantly arranged sitting room, Maggie was seated on the sofa. She was wearing a sophisticated business suit, exuding the aura of a successful female entrepreneur. Both wore serious expressions. "I'm truly sorry about what happened at Christmas," Eleanor began. "I couldn't stay silent after seeing you treated that way. We've overlooked Vivian's behavior for too many years, but enough is enough," Maggie continued. "You have such wonderful talent, and yet Vivian and Becky refuse to acknowledge it. I think it's time to correct this family's pathological structure." Kate nervously picked up a cup of tea. "Actually, I've decided not to interact with those two anymore. I'm just going to live my own life." "That may be so," Eleanor said quietly. "But we thought we should tell you the truth. Why things have become this way." Eleanor and Maggie began telling her about Vivian's younger days. Vivian had been an aspiring writer with talent, but due to the social pressures of the time, she married, became a homemaker, and abandoned her dreams of writing. "Your mother has been unconsciously jealous watching you live the dream she gave up," Maggie said frankly. "And Becky has established her position by undermining you to gain her mother's approval." "Still, that's no reason to hurt me," Kate replied quietly. "Of course not," Eleanor nodded. "That's why we've decided to take action." The two aunts told her about the Monroe family's 100th anniversary celebration party scheduled for next week. Many relatives, friends, and Boston society figures would be invited to this party. "We intend to speak publicly about the years of unfair treatment," Eleanor said. "We especially want to celebrate your talent and success." "But that would expose the family shame," Kate said with surprise. "You don't have to. Sometimes the truth needs to be told," Eleanor said quietly. "This isn't just for you, but for Vivian and Becky too. To make them realize how their actions hurt others." Maggie took Kate's hand. "We know about your New York Times bestseller. We're truly proud of you. But, does your family know?" Kate shook her head. "I didn't have the chance to tell them, or rather no one was willing to listen." "Then let's celebrate your success at the party," Maggie said with determination. "Our time of silence is over." On the day of the party, Kate arrived at the venue with mixed feelings of anxiety and anticipation. She wore a simple yet sophisticated black dress, and had a confident expression. More than 50 people had gathered at the venue, including Monroe family relatives and friends. Vivian and Becky were at the center of attention as usual. They barely glanced at Kate when she entered. However, Eleanor, Maggie, and Olivia welcomed her warmly. After Vivian gave a toast, Eleanor stood up and took the microphone. Her presence enveloped the entire room. "Ladies and gentlemen of the Monroe family, and all our guests," Eleanor began, her voice filled with authority. "Today is a special day to celebrate our family's meaningful 100th anniversary. However, I would like to share some thoughts about the concept of family." The venue fell silent. Vivian looked at Eleanor with an anxious expression. "The true treasure of the Monroe family is the love that supports one another," Eleanor continued. "But there have been times when we've forgotten those values, especially toward the talented Kate, whom this family should be proud of." Next, Maggie stood up and detailed the events of Christmas. The empty box, the missing dinner seat, the long-standing coldness toward Kate. Shocked voices rose from the audience. "Today, we want to speak the truth and celebrate a new beginning," Maggie said powerfully. "Kate, we are proud of your success. You may not know this, everyone, but a novel Kate edited made the New York Times bestseller list last month." Surprised and appreciative voices rose from the venue. Many relatives approached Kate, beginning to ask questions about her work. Voices celebrating her talent spread throughout the room. Vivian and Becky stood in the corner of the room, faces flushed. Confusion and shame were visible in their eyes. Vivian in particular seemed stunned to learn of her daughter's success. Near the end of the party, Kate was standing alone on the terrace. The cold spring breeze caressed her cheeks, and the distant city lights sparkled beautifully. Kate, turning around, she saw Vivian standing there. A vulnerability she rarely showed was visible on her face. "Can we talk about tonight?" Vivian asked in a small voice. Kate looked at her mother. Something might have changed with tonight's events. However, years of wounds wouldn't heal in a single night. "I'm not ready to talk yet, Mom," Kate answered quietly. "I need time." Vivian nodded slowly. "I understand. But your success. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm proud of you." Her words were small, but they seeped into Kate's heart. This was just the beginning, but it was a small step. As she left the party, Kate gave grateful hugs to Eleanor and Maggie. "Without you two, tonight would never have happened. Family isn't just about blood ties," Eleanor smiled. "Sometimes it's about having the courage to speak the truth." As Kate got into her car, she thought about the empty box she had received on Christmas night. Tonight, that box took on a new meaning. It wasn't her life that was empty, but the hearts of the family members who couldn't understand her. A week after the party, Kate was immersed in editing work in her apartment. Her spacious living room was surrounded by piles of books and manuscripts, With her promotion at the publishing house and increased responsibilities, Kate often dedicated her weekends to work. The intercom at her entrance rang, and she paused her work. Looking at the screen, she saw an unexpected visitor, Vivian. Since the night of the party, they had only exchanged brief conversations by phone. Kate took a deep breath and headed to the door. Opening it, she found Vivian looking somewhat weaker than her usual elegant self. "May I come in?" Vivian asked in a small voice, her usual vigor gone. Kate hesitated for a moment but invited her mother in. Vivian looked around the apartment, taking note of the literary awards on the wall and the collection of books Kate had edited on the shelves. "It's a lovely apartment," Vivian said quietly. "I should have known more about your world." Vivian sat uncomfortably on the sofa and, after a long silence, began to speak. "I've been thinking about what Eleanor and Maggie said. I want to apologize to you." Kate returned to the table with 2 mugs of coffee. She waited for her mother's words. "I've been a terrible mother," Vivian's voice trembled. "Especially to you." Vivian began to talk about her youthful dreams and frustrations. When she was young, she had dreamed of becoming a writer, but had given up her dream due to her father's opposition and became a teacher instead. She chose the path of marriage, having children, and living a perfect life that met society's expectations. "The reason I was cold to you was, every time I saw you living my unfulfilled dream, I was jealous. It's shameful, but it's the truth." Vivian lowered her eyes. "You accomplished what I couldn't, and I couldn't admit that." Kate was wrapped in complex emotions. She had gained the recognition and apology from her mother that she had sought for years, but she also saw her mother's weakness and humanity. Some of the anger and sadness within her was beginning to transform into understanding. "Mom, I didn't even know you had dreams," Kate said quietly. "You always prioritized Becky and neglected me, so I thought you simply didn't like me." "That's not true." Tears welled in Vivian's eyes. "Becky was safe for me. She lives according to my expectations. But you were different. You were strong, independent, and forged your own path." That frightened me. A long silence flowed between them. Eventually, Kate spoke. "I'm not perfect either. But from now on, couldn't we try to understand each other?" Vivian nodded with a hopeful expression. "Do you really think so? Will you give me another chance?" "One step at a time," Kate smiled. 2 weeks after that conversation, Becky appeared at Kate's office without warning. Unlike her usual flashy fashion style, she was dressed in a simple blouse and jeans. "Sorry to disturb you while you're busy," Becky said, unusually hesitant. "Could we talk for a bit?" They moved to a cafe near the office. Becky fidgeted with her coffee cup, turning it in her fingers as she began to speak. "You know, after the party, I did a lot of thinking," Becky said with rare lack of confidence. "I've always shown just the perfect image on social media, but the truth is I felt really empty." Becky confessed that she felt her success as an Instagrammer was superficial, and that she wanted to create something of real value, like Kate did. "I actually want to write children's books," Becky said shyly. "But I don't know how. I'm good at Instagram posts, but writing a book." Kate was surprised but moved by her sister's honest confession. The sister she had thought was her rival for over a decade was now seeking her help. "What kind of ideas do you have?" Kate asked gently. "I want to teach children that their value isn't determined by appearances or possessions," Becky began to speak enthusiastically. "Having lived in the social media world and knowing its emptiness, I want to share different values with children." Kate was impressed by Becky's words. Her sister had deeper insights than she had thought. "Let me know if there's anything I can help with. Leave the publishing industry matters to me." Kate smiled. For the next 6 months, Kate and Becky worked closely together. Kate guided Becky's manuscript using her experience as an editor, and Becky utilized her social media marketing skills. Daniel fully supported his wife's new project. Vivian was beginning to change too. At a local literary circle, she began to revive her creative talents that had been sealed away for nearly 50 years. Her short stories were published in a small literary magazine, and she was taking her first steps as a writer, albeit belatedly. A year later, in the summer, a children's picture book edited by Kate and written by Becky, The Secret of the Empty Box, was published. It was a heartwarming story, with the theme of valuing inner worth rather than appearances. It told the story of a little girl who receives an empty box as a present and is initially hurt. But as she writes her dreams and hopes in the box, it begins to change her life. The entire Monroe family gathered for the publication celebration party. Eleanor and Maggie actively supported the two, and Olivia promised to use the book for reading sessions at the hospital where she worked as a pediatrician. "The power of sisters is incredible," Eleanor smiled as she looked at Kate and Becky. 2 different talents coming together to create something wonderful. That year at Christmas, the Monroe family gathered again. But this time, food was prepared for everyone at the table, and a special card was placed at Kate's seat. "Thank you for your talent and kindness. This year, let's all celebrate your success as a family." During the gift exchange time, Kate received a joint present from Vivian and Becky. When she opened it, inside was a beautiful antique fountain pen with a message card saying, "For your next masterpiece." Not empty this time, Kate smiled. "I'll never give you an empty box again," Vivian promised with a serious expression. "Your life is full of the things you've created. I respect that." The family bonds weren't completely healed, but the path to truth and reconciliation had been opened. 3 years later, a children's reading event was being held at the Boston Public Library. Peggy Monroe's picture book series had gained nationwide popularity, and many children had gathered for the publication celebration event of the third book, Adventures of the Dreambox. Kate watched from one corner of the library as her sister read the book to the children. Becky no longer clung to her identity as an Instagrammer and was building a new career as a children's author. Her social media followers might have decreased, but her eyes held a satisfaction and fulfillment that wasn't there before. "You must be proud as a sister." Turning around, she saw Vivian standing there with a smile. At 67, she had become active as a leader in the local literary circle and had published a collection of short stories. It wasn't a commercial success, but her long-held dream had taken shape. "Yes, I'm proud," Kate smiled at her mother. "But we're just supporting each other." Becky grew through her own strength. After the event, the Monroe family gathered at the restaurant managed by Maggie. Eleanor, Olivia and Daniel joined them, enjoying a moment of family togetherness. The natural conversation and laughter made it difficult to recall the past discord. "Everyone, I have an announcement." Kate cleared her throat lightly. All eyes turned to her. "Next month, I'll be taking on the role of head of the children's book division at the publishing house." Congratulatory voices rose from the table. Her achievements in the publishing industry had been recognized, and she was entrusted with even greater responsibilities. "And from now on, Becky's books will be published under my division," Kate continued. "We're officially sister business partners." A toast. Eleanor raised her glass. "To my talented niece's success." Vivian quietly observed her daughters. In her eyes was a mix of pride and slight regret. "If only I had recognized your talents earlier," she said softly. "We can't change the past," Kate said gently. "But the future is different. We can do many more things together." Late that night, Kate returned to her apartment and took out a special box from her study shelf. It was the empty box she had received at Christmas 3 years ago. She had not thrown it away but had kept it carefully. Opening the box, inside were notes she had written, words that had resonated with her, and a list of goals she had achieved. The box that had once been a symbol of humiliation had now become evidence of her growth and change. Kate took out a piece of paper and added a new note: "True reconciliation with family, achieved." The next morning, a young aspiring editor visited her office at the publishing house. "Ms. Monroe, I'm your fan. I hope to be as successful as you someday." Kate smiled. "The definition of success is different for everyone. In my case, the greatest success might be that I can use my talents and have restored true family bonds." She looked at the family photo displayed on her desk. In the photo, the mother and sister who had once given her an empty box had now become her greatest supporters. "Sometimes even the most wounded relationships can be repaired through truth and forgiveness," Kate told the young editor. "And sometimes, the box we thought was empty actually contains something precious, we just didn't notice it." The journey that began with an empty box ultimately transformed her into a stronger, more compassionate person. And now, that box was filled with the most valuable lessons of her life.